All right, this is another one of our videos about Israel in Asia. Israel in Asia. These will be my second post ever on YouTube, so please be mindful. I'm still getting good at this, but today we're going to talk about Macau slave trade. The Macau slave trade happened within Asia, and if it was a Macau slave trade, I know people say, well, Chinese were sold into slavery, everybody's sold into slavery. Okay, well, if people in Macau, which were in China, were sold into slavery, were they Chinese? That's the question. So let's figure out who were the people that were in Macau that was sold into slavery. So, who was in Macau? I got the link here at the top that you can go to yourself and look up this website, and it will give you some history on the slave trade in Macau. In addition, I have this book here, screenshots showing you pictures and saying, hey, this is Macau. So here we go. Is on the first page at the bottom. It says married in Macau in 1620 or slightly later to Kathleen, right? So we're talking about Kathleen. Now, Kathleen's family connections were very important to Ferrari's maritime trade activities, meaning he wanted to get married to her because he wanted to have these connections that was going on in Macau. Why? Because our father, Juan, was a Reno, and we're going to tell you what the Reno is in a second, from Limogo, and her mother was Maria, a native of the city. So basically, she was from Macau. But Catherine's grandmother stated publicly, I mean, she was proud of it, in Macau, amongst the high and the lows alike, to be a Moor. A Moor, okay, so she was Muslim? Her daughter, or daughter of a Moorish Lascar and a converted Jew. Oh, so how can she be both? No, if you go back to my first YouTube, I mentioned in there, and I'm going to show it at the end of this presentation. Many of the people that took on Islamic faith or became a Moor were actually Jews. This is proof right here. Now let's go over to the next page. The composition of imports into the Philippines was divided into local demands for agriculture products, produce, munitions, slaves, equipment for outfitting of ships, and certain types of low-cost cotton clothing, and external demands in New Spain and Peru for silk. So please realize slaves was a high demand in the Philippines. But don't forget, we're talking about Macau right now. So let's read over here. Now, this is from the link from the website that's above. African slaves. Oh, this is African. That don't say Chinese. That doesn't say Moab or Ammon. That says African. But are they really African? Okay, we just read over here the Moorish. So who was the Moors? And whoa, hold on. Let's read this. African slaves in China peaked during the Tang and Song 960 AD to 1279 AD dynasties, but the number of African slaves taken to China during the 608 years period is unclear. So we're not sure. Of course, it's unclear. By the point Chinese precipitations of the Kunlun became more complex. Yeah, of course, because they hide in it. These perceptions ranged from strong and mysterious to fighting. So basically, they don't want to talk about it, basically. The Kunlun in the Tang Dynasty era were portrayed in numerous stories of the period as heroic, resourceful, and iconic. Cultural Chinese, most Chinese during this period, however, unless they were very wealthy, had little contact with African slaves, perhaps explaining the differing views of the Kunlun. During the Song Dynasty, the number of African slaves increased in China. Most came from Madagascar and Comoros Island, and thus indirectly from Africa, since the Arabs brought sub-Saharan Africans to both areas. Most Kunlun slaves in China lived in Canton province. By this time, they were mostly viewed as a displaced people who lacked the ability to adapt to Chinese environments. They were also described as savage with unintelligible speech, maybe because they didn't speak Chinese. However, let's focus on this. Canton province, and by the way, displaced people. So now that we know who was in Macau, we see that there was a mixture in there. If you go back to my last presentation that talk about scriptures, that there are people who will be scattered among the people of Moab and Ammon. So let's talk about it. And by the way, if you want to look at a picture, here's a picture from the same site. This is what your Kunlun slave looked like. Now, as also mentioned, they start intermingling with these people and start taking on their features. So if they start intermingling with these people and start taking on features, what did they morph to and where are they at now? If you go back to my first YouTube, you will see that I presented this map as the beginning of the presentation to highlight all of Israel scattered throughout Asia. It is problematic because of the intermixing and intermingling of the northern tribe all throughout Asia. You know, you got the Scythians, the Saki. We got those guys. We're going to do another presentation just strictly on this one as we're doing now, strictly on Macau. So we're going to focus on Macau this time. So where's Macau on this map? There you go. That's Macau. If you remember the last slide I just read, we said Canton province. Isn't that interesting? Canton says, I don't know if there's 120 or 20,000 Chinese Jews, old synagogue of record. And then if you look right below it, it says, despite ruin of every province and massacres of Jews in the Civil War, okay, they had a Civil War, that began in 854 AD, basically. So from 875 to 900 AD, founded Jewish communities in all large cities of Chinese able to speak Hebrew, which is why they were not able to speak clearly to the people. Now you see the connection. Go back to the last slide. They said they were savages unable to speak the language because they spoke Hebrew. You see it? It's right in your face. Next one. So where's Macau? Macau's right next to Hong Kong. Macau's right next to Hong Kong. So most of this information is coming from this book right here called The Survival of Empire, the Portuguese Trade and the Society in China in the South China Sea. Please go buy the book. It's not that expensive. Not as of now, it isn't. But what I've noticed is that if you start identifying histories and connecting the facts, they don't want you to buy the book or they don't want you to read it. Most likely, most of us don't read it. But hey, that's why a lot of us are doing YouTubes. So feel free to use this YouTube for your reference. So this is another. This is a map of Macau, and as you notice here, the South China import large quantities of spices. So you got spices, you got silver, you got the Silk Road, and you got slaves. And the Portuguese catered to the Chinese basically appetite for silver with large scales of imports from Japan, the New World, VA, Manila, and circular routes from Mexico and Peru. So basically it was a trade market from Mexico and Peru into Macau as well as into the Philippines. Get the book, it's all there. And if you want to Google it just to verify, there you go. This is modern day maps on Google. Macau, and right next door is Hong Kong. So was there slaves out there? Were there Jews out there? Or Moorish people they might have called them? It looked like it was. And was there a slave trade that meets Deuteronomy 28? I think it does. Here we go. Check it out, guys. So the southern China trade to Southeast Asia. The first presentation I did on the first YouTube, I mentioned that I only can confirm the trade into the Philippines due to the book I just mentioned, due to Asian slaves of colonial Mexico. Those confirmed that there was a huge slave trade in the Philippines. I could not confirm quite the other Southeast Asian seas and why they're so different than everyone else. Because, think about it, Southeast Asia versus China, Japan, and Korea, and those guys. It's a vast difference between them. So why? Well, how about the fact is that a lot of the people that intermingled and those that they knew was Jewish bloods got shipped out into Southeast Asia. Can I say everybody's the same people? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. But this is proof that a lot of them was pushed out and they meet the prophecies. And let's just read the narrative here. During the 1800s and the early 1900s, Southern Chinese, like the Canaanites, there go that word again, Canaan. That's that region that those Jews were at. In Fijianites, I don't know where they come up with these names. People begin to migrate where? Southeast Asia, due to violence, uprising, rebellions. Oh, rebellions against what? And civil wars in southern China against the crumbling Qing Dynasty. I don't know if I said that right. But during this time, there was multiple wars. We just read that on that map, guys. There was wars. Multiple wars that were raging across southern China, from ethnic rebellions and persecutions of who? Persecutions of who? Muslim rebellions. Were they really Muslim or they was just tired of oppression? I said this in another presentation. Were they Muslims or were they Jews? I'm confused. To bayonet invasion. So they basically was trying to avoid invasions, and even the infamous Taplin rebellion that revoked against Manchurian rule over the ethnic southern Han minorities. So please realize these people were put to war and shipped out into slavery. They were either killed, as you saw right earlier, they were massacred, killed, or shipped into slavery. And then let's keep reading. The reasons why these destinations from Thailand, Cambodia, North Central, Vietnamese, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia was partly due to the fact that they were almost important trade routes and cities to Chinese merchants as early as the 14th century. During the 16th through 20th century was also a time during French, Dutch, and British colony rules in Southeast Asia, because more evident that garnering the attention of especially the British colonies to gain more what? Labor, and thus trafficking southern Chinese labor that eventually would heavily populate the places like Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So they saying it was like labor. Really? No. They 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 took them from Chinese. They took them from China and put them in bondage, sold them into these locations, and made them slaves. And then, of course, if you read more books, if you read the history books of Philippines, they made them kind of seem like they were indentured servants, or hey, we're gonna free you, you're gonna pay off, you're gonna work off your slavery, and they did, and they became denaturalized. However, it was through they were inducted and shipped out through slavery. So if people say, oh, so a lot of these people were shipped into the Southeast Asian Sea, which hints the reason why they are much kind of darker than the other Asians. Might explain some things. Here's another route right here. There's just another map, just showing that the principal areas where you got the Macau up in the top, you got them being traveled, and you got the Dutch East Indies, you got the Dutch So don't forget, by the way, the Dutch ruled, shipped a lot of people out here, and the Dutch had also, there was a lot of Jews in the Dutch Jews basically that was pretty much, once the Spanish Inquisition happened, they were enslaved as well, and then basically pushed out into these countries. So look it up; it's out there. But did the slave trade happen from Macau down to these Southeast Asian countries? I think it did. So here's some more books, and let's just cover down on the scripture. Deuteronomy 28:68. And the Lord shall send thee into Egypt again, and with ships. Egypt is mean bondage. By the way, where I speak unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies as for bondman and bondservant. No man shall buy you. Did that not, or did it happen? I might be wrong. I could be wrong. Please let me know if I'm wrong. I'm just going off of just connections and coincidence in books that are articulating what happened to certain people, and now the combination, as people do read and see these YouTube videos that are out there, you start to connect the dots. So there was a Pacific slave trade into Indonesia and into the Philippines. These are artwork that was provided, sharing the silk being sold, as well as slaves. There you go. Did they look Asian? Absolutely. They just happen to be a little darker. That's it. So, more confirmation. Right now, we're not talking about the Kojin and the rest of these guys. We're just talking about Macau. But right in the middle here, we got the demographics of Macau from 1601 to 69. If you go down the list, 5,000 slaves, 5,000 slaves. So 1634, there was 5,000 slaves shipped out from Macau. I don't know where they went. It looks like they went to Southeast Asia. That's the way it looks like. I mean, from the map we just looked at, from 1635, there was 5,100 slaves. It looked like they were shipped out to Southeast Asia. What a coincidence. And then 1640, another 5,000 slaves were shipped out on boats into where? Southeast Asia. It's there. It's there. And then if you look over here in these books, they're talking about people being shipped from other places. Don't worry, people were shipped from other locations into where? Southeast Asia, especially the Philippines. You can just read around. Look all these pages. You look up these words. Look what that, these are Hispanic words that means mixed Jew. You know, encroachment in Manila, where the Spanish kind of make sure they occupied as well as shipped out people for their benefits. Look it up. Another converted Jew right here at the bottom on the right. A Christian, a converted Jew. So this person wasn't a Moor, but he was a Christian. Oh no, I'm sorry. He was a Jew, but he converted to Christianity. I wonder why. Maybe because he was forced. And then, by the way, if he was put into Christianity, it was forced into slavery. Almost no different than Islamic as well. So there you go. That's another one. And let's cover down this more thing again, just in case we forgot. I did mention this in the first presentation. Moorish identities. This is just confirmation and proof that a lot of Jews took refuge in Muslim lands and became what? Moors. And Moors in Philippines became what? Moros. And then what happened to the Moros, as we see at the bottom on the left? By the Moors of Spain, when they turned, came to suffer full-fledged religion and racial persecution. What did we just read a few slides ago? That they persecuted the Chinese, persecuted the Muslims and the Moors in Macau. And what did they do with them? According to that map and according to the page in that book, they put them in slavery and sold them into Southeast Asia to be servitude into those countries. to sustain those islands and create a market there. Just track it, please. And then, by the way, let's just cover this book one last time. I mean, not last time, but again, from the first presentation. When this gentleman went into this Moreno that was from Portuguese, he was a Moreno, means he was a conversalist, he was a Jew as well. And when he mentioned that that he saw they are gray and olive complected, but naked. So he saw that he's like, these guys are not, because the Jews were kind of high class people. So why are these guys naked? But for certain sheets of cotton, they were partly heathen and partly Moor. So now you can see, but the latter was rooted out. So he can go, when he said Moor, what did he really meant? We just read multiple times that some of these Moors were actually converted Jews. And we just confirmed that a lot of people that went to Macau that were in Canaan were Jews. But yet, because they took refuge in Moorish countries, they took on the names of Moors, or took on the religion of Islam, so that they can stay secured and not receive any more persecution and death. However, they could not escape the curses, so they went into slavery into the Southeast Asian Sea, and you can see why there are so many different dark complected Asians within Asia. The separation is starting to make sense between the people. Do your homework. You guys have a great day, and I will probably do another one of these for another region to confirm that it does make sense. I cannot, if your spirit bear witness, please go back, learn how to keep the commandments, learn that your heritage was taken from you because you're probably Israel. You're probably a Jew. Now, Jews was used for everybody, but you're part of the northern tribe. Realize what that is. Read your Bible. Read these books. I'll put some more content. I could be wrong. Any camp out there that's watching these videos, I could be a blivin' idiot. And I have no problem saying you calling me one, because I'm okay with that. I've been called that one by Esau multiple times. It's not new to me. I just hope I get love from some of these camps as well. But hey, by all means, I hope I bless somebody with this information and material. You guys have a good day.